of Arms.
Welcome to Sunday Service, giving our service members a platform to share their stories and experiences abroad.
Hey everyone, welcome to Sunday Service. I am Corey from Coat of Arms, one of your hosts, and with me I have got Josh, my co-host from Baden K9, and we've got some incredible guests here on the show. Mark, Oz, Geist.
Hey everybody, it's great to be on Sunday Service here and be sharing with y'all. Looking forward to y'all joining us. But those of you who may not know me, my name's Mark Geist. My call sign's Oz. I did a dozen years in the United States Marine Corps. Half a dozen as law enforcement, and then another 3 as a bounty hunter, chasing bad guys. And then about 2004, I started contracting with the U.S. government in war-torn areas around the world. Ended up in Benghazi, contracting with the CIA, and better known as the Culinary Institute of America. And then till I got blown up in Benghazi on a rooftop. But that's the short of my story, and hope you guys check out the book 13 Hours or watch the movie 13 Hours, and you'll learn a little bit more about me, at least what happened in Benghazi.
Josh, who else do we got with us here today?
We got Yoda, Kevin Whitenect. We go back many years, our family, our business. Kevin has a company, Tier 1 Soft. And him and I did some work while he was in his unit, which is Canadian Special Forces Unit, Tier 1 unit, JTF 2. So, Yoda, say hello to the people.
Hey, Oz, Josh, Corey, great to see you guys, and looking forward to a chat here. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, man, we're looking forward to getting into it, chopping it up a little bit. And just to introduce everybody, this is our first installment of Sunday Service. And what is Sunday Service, you ask? It's an opportunity to give a platform to reach out to our service members and check in to see what they're doing and how they're making it. If they're currently serving, then checking in on that. And if they're former serving, then what are they doing in their life right now? And I'm really excited to get into this. So I'm going to start off with Oz. Mark, how you been, man? Anybody who knows you, they know your story. But for those who don't, as you mentioned, there was a great movie by Michael Bay, blockbuster hit movie, 13 Hours. And in the movie, if you've seen it, there was a gentleman who was blown up on the roof at one of the mortar attacks and nearly cut his arm clear off. And that was you. So what was the movie about, just kind of in a nutshell?
It's a 13-hour gunfight, basically, that started about 9:30 in the evening, ended at about 5:30. Ended at 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning. But by the time we got out of Benghazi, getting to the airport, getting everybody loaded up, the last guys got out of there about 10:30 the following day on the 12th. Really what this story is about is it's about 6 guys and another team that came down from Tripoli that decided that they weren't going to let the bad guys win. And they'd taken over 40 armed insurgents had taken over our consulate. We went over, pushed them off. 5 of the guys did. I stayed back at the annex, covering security there. The bad guys followed us back after we rescued their security team and recovered Sean Smith's body. We had another 3 battles throughout the night it culminated really in a indirect fire attack, mortar attack, where 3 81 millimeter mortars landed on the rooftop about 15 feet from me, Ty and Glenn, and right in between me and Dave, the State Department guy. Injured him really bad. He about lost his arm and his leg. I about lost my arm, had about another 20, 25 holes in me, and we unfortunately lost Ty and Glenn in that. But if it wasn't for the tenacity and the desire to win and refuse to lose, we'd have lost the other 20 some odd people that we were protecting as well.
Outstanding story there, Oz. Absolutely incredible. I know I was speaking with Kevin earlier today. Kev, you had some questions in regards to this specific attack as well.
Yeah, I do have a couple questions for Oz. I'll give the first one now, the other one later when it's the right time. So just to quantify the question is, I think we all know that in popular culture right now, I mean, in the last number of years, is a fascination with warrior culture, soldiering, special operations, even warfare alone. It's like massive. People are just like very fascinated by it and by our community, and I understand it. So bearing that in mind, Brother Oz, would you be able to, or would you mind sharing with the audience just a little bit of when you were on that rooftop? I know that 13 hours is a lot going on in 13 hours, a lot. Like anyone who's been in it knows that 2 minutes is a long time in a gunfight. 13 hours is an eternity. So could you just share a little bit of what was going on in your mind on that rooftop at any given time during the scrap?
Yeah, because I get asked that question a lot. A couple of them is, how did you overcome for 13 hours in a gunfight? And the other is, were you afraid of dying? And, really what it's about, we all do it every day. We just don't realize that I call it task saturation. Our lives are, there's things that pop up at a minute's notice as you're going through daily life. When you're in a gunfight, I mean, they're popping up in milliseconds, whether it be threats, security issues you've got to keep track of the people you're protecting, all of those things that are coming up. And you as the warfighter have to analyze and decide in a second, in milliseconds really, on which one to engage first and how to take out each situation. And you have to do that. You have to work at it, practice at it, and deal with each situation, get rid of it, and move on to the next one, because there's going to be 4 or 5 of them coming within the next 3 or 4 seconds. That's just the way gunfights are, the way they develop. They're fluid in how they occur, and you've just got to be prepared for everything and just ready to go at it.
Oh, wonderful. So that rolls into my next question, and Josh, you should feel free to tap in on a response to this question, because it has to do with fear. And it's like right now what's going on in the world, and shut me down if I'm talking too much, brothers, but there's a lot of fear in the world right now. COVID-19 has scared the living daylights out of a lot of people all around the globe, and families are struggling to make a buck to feed their kids, and no one really knows what's going to take place tomorrow. Now, for us as war fighters and trainers of war fighters like Bad and Canine are, we do have a familiarity with what it's like to not know what's going to happen and be under a lot of stress and not really know what's going to happen. Both Oz and Josh, can you guys elaborate? Let's start with Oz first, but can you guys elaborate a little bit about how you guys deal with the stress of fear, how you're dealing with fear in the unknown? And I'm sure I'm not sure, I know for a fact there's an application for how we deal with fear in the unknown of a gunfight. The same application applies in life, no matter what you're doing, trying to feed your kids. You got family that have health problems. I mean, fear is fear. So if you guys can elaborate on how you guys deal with fear in the unknown.
Yeah, like for myself, I mean, and it's kind of an old Marine Corps adage, but it's your 6 P's. Prior planning prevents piss poor performance. Basically what that breaks down to is like in Benghazi, an example is in our spare time, we would go over how we might get attacked, because that it's going to be, the possibility is very likely. They don't have us in places that are safe, so you got to plan on those things. And the way we do that is each person might, every day somebody would come up with a different way of how we are going to attack the compound. The rest of us would discuss how we would defend against it, how we're going to deal with all the different unknowns and make them a known, basically, or at least the possibility of a known. And it's not the first time that you've seen that or thought about it when it comes down to that time. I mean, very similar to what's going on right now in the country. I mean, you know, when they announced that they were going to shut down the border, that they were going to have everybody hold in place or, you know, kind of stay in your homes, that shouldn't have been the first time you thought that that's going to happen. I know most people don't ever think that's going to happen in their lifetime. You know, there's all those that are out there that are, I guess you'd classify them as preppers. Well, I think we just made everybody in America and Canada a prepper, because everybody knows now that, you know, toilet paper and paper towels and wipes aren't going to, that's not how to save your life. It's looking at the things that, and thinking those things through, knowing what, you know, planning, okay, for this next time, because there could be a next time. And that next time, well, and a good example was for me is, you know, after I got back from Benghazi, where me and my family were living, there was a forest fire that came through. So we had to evacuate that. And, you know, I've always set up everything. I've got, I mean, and this is going a little bit far, but I've got boxes that are labeled, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, because, you know, there's pictures and papers and things that I want to make sure I get out. Then if I've got time to get that out, then I go to the next. And it just prioritizes how I'm going to take things if I need to go. I mean, little things like that, you know. And so I think it was not even a year after Benghazi happened, you know, we're evacuating our house because there's a forest fire coming through. So I had to go do that.
That's fantastic.
And again, it's pre-planning. It's planning for the unknown and planning for that thing that you don't and you really hope never happens. But in case it does, at least you're prepared.
That's awesome. Thank you. Josh, what do you got any thoughts on that? On how from your perspective as a trainer of war fighters, special operators, and also the civilian population and family protection and all that, and also you've been a military contractor overseas as well in Afghanistan, working in the same community that Oz and I come from. What's your thoughts process on dealing with fear and the unknown?
Well, first of all, I want to thank you guys for being here. You know, taking time out of your day, your families, and all that stuff. I want to thank both of you. I think it's your 76th birthday today, isn't it, Yoda?
Hey, look. No one really knows how old Yoda is, but I got a friendly bet with my wife's grandmother, Rose, on who's going to live the longest. So I said, I'm going to live to 103. Now, God bless Rose. Rose passed in her early 90s, but the bet's still on because she's waiting to see. She's waiting. She's in God's presence, and she's waiting to see who God allows to live the longest on this planet. And I still think it's going to be me. So
that's only because he doesn't want you up there yet.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he's like, I don't want your stinky butt up here with me at this point. Like, you got a lot more to do. But the truth is, I'm 53 today. So
happy birthday, brother. And listen, I've traveled overseas, and you and I have done some stuff together. So no comment on who's going first. But so listen, you know, I'm very blessed to have men around you and men around like you my whole life. You know, so you know, the foundation of Bat and Canine and what the podcast is, the farm, and the opportunity to bring gentlemen like yourself and others that I grew up around that took the time, like you guys are taking today, to not only spend it with others, but also bring me up and teach me and train me and prepare me for the path that I've walked and not enlisted in the military, but beside and supporting you guys as a company and as an individual. So, you know, I would just agree, not to copycat Mark. You know, my training and my upbringing, not just my training, but my upbringing was always demonstrated with strength. And I had the opportunity to follow my father around when we would go hunting and you know, I witnessed my father demonstrate and make a stance as a very controversial man that impacted not only the dog world, but many different avenues of life in itself, and never stand down. And I often question myself, were you afraid I mean, the situations, you know, as a kid you would witness, and then later on as you get a little older, not as old as you, but a little older, you know, you would think, you know, was he afraid then or wasn't he? You know, and I think that the training, not just the training, the type of training and the instructors like you two, and which is why I want to, and I know Corey does, want to offer this intellectual property of your guys' testimonies and your guys' stories to the public, because you're right, there is a world out there that people are afraid. It might not be afraid of the COVID-19. It might be afraid of what that's going to do to their finances. That's going to do to their marriage. Some people, we have brothers right now, veteran brothers in the hospital that are sick. I mean, they're dealing with other illnesses that are impacting them, their businesses, their marriages, their, you know, relationships themselves. And, you know, I think listening to your guys' testimonies is going to, one, for myself, have another reference point. There's a saying, and you guys have said, and I steal it from you guys, and we've said it to each other: no one's shooting at us. So it's a good day. And, you know, I think that looking at what people are going through and the stress level of just having to line up and stand behind plexiglass and not have that interaction with people and everything that we took for granted a month ago, we are not adapting to this change very well. And you're going to see people fall back on their foundation, because your foundation is your cornerstone when stress hits. And like it is with the dogs and the breeding, the genetics, you guys know that and can explain it better in training. We're here to allow the public and the viewers to learn and to understand that it's not that bad. It's bad for some people. I'm not taking away from the illnesses and the ones that have suffered. It is bad. But that we can get through it. And there's ways to get through it. And there's men and women that can give testimonies and direction and advice, real advice, not if you buy this, you know, DVD and pop it in and, you know, your abs are going to get stronger and you're going to make it through it. It's real advice, real world experience. And like I said earlier, we were talking, Kevin, this is your saying, and I say it humbly, facta non verba. And that means deeds, not words. You guys taught that to me. The individuals that brought me into Afghanistan, you brought it up, were from your unit. And they, you know, for whatever reason, I think it's because of my good looks, brought me in. And I've learned a lot from you men. I continue to learn a lot from you men. And I'm here, man, to listen too. So fear. I've been married over 20 years. My wife has been very angry at me. And I've been very afraid of her. So I'm doing all right over here.
So if I may sum that up, and then I'll hand it back over to Corey, because these are the reason why I wanted to ask these questions to Oz and Josh is, I mean, I anticipated their answers, but there's so much truth to their answers that it's a good thing to hear on a regular basis. And so to sum them up, and correct me if I'm wrong, fellas, I mean, we're talking about foundation of who you are, how you got that foundation. Oz hit the issues of preparation for stressful events, because stressful events create fear. So, you know, what is your foundation? What is our foundation? How do we prepare for stressful events in life? And we're not talking about, the truth is, we're not even talking about on a gunfight on a rooftop. We're talking about in our families and our lives and all these things. And the truth is, I think Oz would probably say to me that it's actually, it might be deadlier on a rooftop in a gunfight, but it's simpler. Like, life is kind of simple when you're in it. When you're in a fight, it's simple, but life is not simple. So how about this for a thought? And a very wise man, a mentor of mine, said this to me a long time ago when I was just finished selection and going into the SOF world, special operations world. He actually said to me, and he goes, Kev, he goes, if you don't have the right foundation for this, he goes, then build a new foundation. Take the time and build a new foundation. Go away and recreate the foundation that you want to build a lifelong career and as a soldier on. And the three of us, I can't speak for Corey, but I got a feeling it might be similarity. The three of us, we've been very blessed in our life, our fathers, or the way the Lord brought our life forward, that we were very blessed with solid foundations. People put time into us when we were younger that built a foundation that's enabled us to build and survive on a rooftop in a gunfight. You know, Josh, go to Afghanistan, survive, come back, but then also not just do that, but train high-level warriors and operators and the public as well. Like, that takes foundation. So I think for the viewers out there, just a thought, and then I'll shut up and hand it over to Corey. If you're worried and concerned that you don't got the right foundation to deal with fear and prepare for that for your families moving forward, well, guess what? Don't worry about that. Build a new foundation. You can do it.
Hey, Kev, just really quick, and then we'll let Corey on that. You know, I just want to mention for myself, because I'll get off the camera and be like, man, why didn't you say that? But the bottom line, my cornerstone outside of my upbringing and all that is Lord Jesus Christ. And I say that very humbly, but that is the number one thing that gets me through fear. And that is my cornerstone. It always hasn't been. I relied on and fell on all kinds of other things in life, and I found out on my 30th birthday that didn't work. That didn't work. But you know, I just wanted to mention that. You mentioned there's something else I want to mention, but I just scrolled out. So, anyways, we'll pass it over to. I had to mention that before later on I watched this. Corey, you're up.
Yeah, man. Listen, guys, I just want to tell you I appreciate the opportunity to be able to have these type of conversations with you guys. And the important piece for me on that, in summing up what Josh had said as well, has been, you know, we talk about perspective, because we say not everybody has the same foundation, or not everybody is the same preparedness. But everything comes back down to perspective. And Josh, you said an interesting thing. First of all, you're talking about value, the value of the gentleman we're speaking to right now, the value of the knowledge that is here at the table. And when we talk about perspective, like when I first started shooting and learning as a civilian how to shoot as a hobby, I remember going out and saying, like, you know, I bought a gun. In Canada, we need a firearms license. I got a firearms license. I went out to the range. I bought 50 rounds of 9mm, and I shot it every week, 50 rounds. Like, I was the man. Man, the training I was doing, 50 rounds a week, wow. Then I went up to my first course, and the first course told me, yeah, you make sure that you bring out about 1,000 rounds. And I thought, 1,000 for what? And they're like, we're going to shoot 1,000 rounds today. And I thought, I haven't shot 1,000 rounds in my life at that point. And I really thought to myself, like, this is foreign to me. So the important piece from that lesson for me was, I was much further than the average person in terms of firearms knowledge, because I, got my license and they didn't have one. 2, I got a gun. And 3, I was training on a regular basis, 50 rounds a week. But then my perspective was changed when I saw what was required to be proficient. And that's the big piece that I want people to recognize from the gentleman that we're interviewing here and working with, is you need to change your frame of reference. And having done the TV show and worked with both of these gentlemen on the TV show, my frame of reference was changed dramatically again. And I want to challenge everybody out there to change your frame of reference. Test yourself to the point of failure and understand about what Kev is saying is build a new foundation. Just because you didn't have it now, or maybe you didn't come from a great family upbringing, or you just haven't learned the lessons you need to learn. A lot of people don't have the foresight to have a matching pair of socks. Okay, and I don't mean that jokingly or to come down on anybody. I just want everybody to recognize we have the ability to gain value from these people for free. There's no cost to this. And the sacrifices that they have had to make in order to be able to gain the knowledge and experience they have, that to me is invaluable. So I just wanted to make that point, guys, and thank you for those contributions you guys are giving to us and our audience. And you know what, and coming from the civilian side of the house here, man, I'm a sponge. I just want to learn. And I know that anybody watching this video is just like I am. So I'm going to turn the floor back over to Oz and get back into that kind of mindset piece. Oz, you're armed, you're on the rooftop, you're defending, you're seeing your brothers in arms injured. Now you yourself are injured. Your arm is literally severed off, blown up. And now Tig comes on the rooftop. He's putting tourniquets on your brothers and on yourself. And now you need to get yourself off the rooftop by yourself. What's going through your head at that moment? And what was the interaction with Tig at that point?
Well, so I mean, and to Tig's to the character of Tig, I mean, the last mortar had just hit, and instead of hiding in a hole or taking cover, Tig's running towards that because he knew that there was guys up there that were injured. And before the dust even settled, he's up on top of the rooftop, and he immediately runs into Dave. And Dave's arm, like I said, his arm was about severed off. His left leg was. He got 2 tourniquets on him, saving his life. Next thing he knows, he comes over to me, and I'm trying to get a tourniquet on. I'm holding my arm up. I'm trying to grab a tourniquet. I can't get my arm to stay in place long enough to get it up. And and Tig being Tig, he comes up and he just kind of looks at me and says, "Hey, you might want to quit playing with that thing. You're not going to make it any better." And then he kneels down and gets a tourniquet put on it. And he says, "Hey, can you get off the roof on your own, or can you get over to the ladder?" And and in the back of my mind, I mean, I'm still hoping that Ty and Glenn are alive. I mean, I'm pretty sure they're not because I've checked Ty's pulse. But I'm not going to take away Tig from being able to work on them and possibly save their lives just so I can, to help me make my life a little bit easier. So I get over to the ladder. I get a little bit of help up. I sitting on the edge with my legs hanging over. And that's when it really dawns on me, what I just volunteered to do, because I'm sitting there thinking, how am I going to get onto the ladder? Because, I mean, the ladder was an impromptu ladder we had made about 45 days before. It was 1.5 inch square tubing we welded together, bolted up to the edge of the building. And so I just hooked my good arm around that top rung, and I figure if I slide off, my body's just going to turn, and I'll land on the ladder and everything will be good, right? So it worked just perfect until my feet were supposed to hit the ladder, and my feet didn't make it. They went through 2 holes. But again, I've been holding on to that with my good arm. So it goes back to prior planning. I mean, last thing I wanted is my obituary to read, survived gunfight, got blown up, fell off roof and broke neck. That is not what's going to be put in my obituary. I mean, my kids are going to, "Hey, what'd your dad do?" "Oh, he fell off the rooftop in a gunfight and broke his neck." There is no way. That's what I was afraid of. That's what I was really afraid of, is that.
And what we would have done, Oz? We would have put a friggin' neck brace on your body in the casket.
I know it. I know you would have. You would have. And then you would have videotaped it and put it all over social media.
Yeah, for sure. 100%.
I would have deserved it. But so I got down and I walked around to the front, went in and laid down, and and in that process, I mean, I still had to tell the guys, and this is where fear is again, and letting the stress overwhelm you to where you don't operate, or so you don't act, because it's better that you act wrong than not act at all. Because if you don't act at all, there is no chance you're going to save yourself in whatever the situation is. They call it fight or flight. I mean, that freeze of not doing. I had 4 people looking at me, not knowing what to do. There was 4 flashlights in my face, and I had to explain to them, "Hey, I'm bleeding from more than just my arm. I need you to get my clothes cut off. I need you to fix this hole. Tell me what you're seeing. Hey, if it's squirting, stop the bleeding. If it's not, if it's just oozing, don't worry about that. Get the squirter stopped first." And, luckily I had the female case officer that I'd been out with earlier that night. I mean, she's the first one that reacted. And she went and she grabbed shears. She come back. She was able to get my clothes cut off. And, they ended up taking care of me, and guided them through what they needed to do. But, and that goes back to just, it goes back to that mindset. I mean, every morning when you wake up, you can either have a good day or a bad day. It's up to you. And it goes back to like what all of you were saying, is your perspective on life. When my feet hit the ground, every morning I decide if I'm going to have a good day or bad. And, I just refuse to have bad days, because there's going to be enough other things that are going to come in there and try to mess up my day. I've got to start out with the right mental focus and the right mental attitude. And that's what, I know, and I know this with Yoda, I know it with Josh, training, whether you're doing the training or whether you're training somebody in our community, you're working with these dogs. Your attitude is a direct reflection on how you are going to train or how you are training somebody else or training the animals. And, you've got to have that set right there in the beginning. So each and everybody that's out there, I mean, when your feet hit the floor, that every morning, decide and make a conscious decision that you're going to have a great day.
Thank you for sharing that too with us. I know for you, to a lot of people, that's a story or it's a movie or it's a book. You lived it, it's your life, and I'd like to thank you for your contributions, which you've done. So thank you for that. And Kev, I had a conversation before about, I don't know if you're able to share this, you let me know if you can't, but about some teammates and talking about resiliency and kind of rising to the moment. I'm not too sure. Can you share that on the air with us?
Yeah, sure can. I remember the conversation. I remember the context of it too, because I was asked about, I'm not the only one, like all kinds of different gunfighters from different backgrounds, Marine, Naval Special Warfare, Special Operations, like we're asked all the time, hey, what's the highlight of your career, blah, blah, blah. So here's the thing. It's like you can go through a military career and do a lot of stuff. I mean, literally, I'm not going to talk about what I've done, but I'm going to tell you what's impacted me. So I have been at it for 30 years. If I add up my time of service and my military contracting years operating, and I'm still active as a military contractor, although I'm starting to slow that down. I've been at this for 30 years plus. And what's impacted me is the human beings, the people around me. And what's impacted me the most in just being immersed in military culture is that pretty much every single dude and dudette that I've ever met in all these 30 years, they've all known that their life is not their own. And the public's going to go, what does that mean? I mean, I run my own life. I mean, my life's my own. And when you sign up to serve, your life is no longer your own. Your life belongs literally to your government, right or wrong, good or bad. It doesn't matter. And you know what? Even more importantly, your life belongs to your teammates. It even applies to other emergency services, firefighters, police officers, which Oz has been a police officer. I've never been a cop. In fact, they'd never take me. They'd probably throw me out like in the first wash. But here's the epitome of the mindset that your life is not your own and that somebody else is more important than yourself. And that's what I learned my whole 30 years. And so my team, I wasn't on this mission, gang, and it is public knowledge, so I'm not going to break OPSEC, but I'm not going to give out too much detail that might affect someone's personal security. All I'm going to tell you this is my teammates were in on target and their helicopter got hit hard. The helicopter got hit hard, caught on fire on the inside and on the outside, and crash landed. Real small team of operators, plus the air crew and the loadie and the gunners. And it was a Chinook, if anybody knows what a Chinook helicopter looks like. When these guys crash landed, now I selected all the guys on that mission. Actually, I had selected or trained at some point. So I've got an emotional connection to these brothers. And half of them I'm real close with. Like, we keep a lot of contact. So I've got all this stuff going on in my head when I hear this. When I tell the story, I got all this stuff in my head. So here we go. So these guys they were out all night, hitting target after target after target, doing what they do, and they got smacked hard. Their helicopter had to crash land on a mountainside, not to be disclosed where. When they crash landed, they were coming in, the bird's on fire on the inside. They got rounds coming up through the bird. And one of my brothers got hit both legs, both thighs, 7.62 bullet rounds up into his thighs. Got him into some trouble, hemorrhaging, the whole shebang. Helicopter came in, crashed. Everybody bailed out of the helicopter. When they bailed out, what they didn't know is that they had literally, the pilot did a great job. It was American pilots, all I'm going to say. He brought the boys down about 100 or so meters above where the enemy was, where the bad guys were. But our boys, when they rolled out, it was just a handful of them. The enemy was about 120. And as they were rolling out, they were under fire. Rolled out, going through the break contact drills, a lot of stuff going on in your head. In their head, they're like, we got to get out of here. We got to break contact. We got to get the heck out of here. And they realize real fast they're missing somebody. So one of my brothers, without hesitation, ran back into a burning helicopter that just crashed, found my other brother, threw him over his shoulder, and pulled him out. So that tasking alone is incredible. If first of all, just think about picking up a dude that with all his equipment and his body weight is going to be over 300 pounds. Running into the helicopter that's engulfed in flames, while you know you got to get the heck out of there because there's a huge amount of gunfire coming down on you. And all you're caring about is not leaving your buddy behind. So that small caption of, I don't know how long it took the two of them to get out of the helicopter, but that small caption alone, you could do a PhD thesis on the psychology of that alone. So long story short, they got out. My one brother's carrying my other brother, and that small team did a running battle about 4 hours up the mountain to try to break contact from these bad guys, 120 bad guys coming after them. And the entire time, as far as I understand from the story, because I have some inside information, my brother who carried my other brother never, ever handed him off. He carried the same dude 4 hours up the mountainside in a gun battle. A 4-hour gun battle. And anyone that's ever been in a gunfight knows that when you shoot and move, it's exhausting. It's mentally exhausting. It's physically exhausting. But they did it. He did it. He moved all the way up that whole time. And in the end, and I'm getting to a point here, gang. I know I'm a little long-winded on it. In the end, they defeated about 120 bad guys. Not one of the good guys died. Even though there was a bunch of them that got wounded, none of them died. So that's a whole other story in itself. You know, I mean, it's also a spiritual story, I believe, as well. But here's the kicker. What is going on inside a dude or dudettes head that's going to run inside a helicopter, pick up a dude, drag him, continue to carry him, and fight at the same time? What's going on in his head? I'll tell you what's going on in his head. What's going on in his head is Josh's life is of more importance than my own. Oz's life is of more importance than my own. Corey's life is more important than my own. And that selflessness, that overrides everything. It even overrides patriotism. Because the world likes to look at us and go, these guys are so patriotic and blah, blah. And don't get us wrong, we are patriotic, 100%. I'm a patriot. I'm a Canadian patriot. Oz is an American patriot. I've had the honor of fighting under both flags. But I'll tell you, when you're out there, we're not necessarily looking at, hey, I'm doing this for the Canadian U.S. government. And at times, we're not, and I mean this with love and respect, we're not actually going, oh, I'm doing this for the Canadian people. I'm doing this for the American people. We're doing it because the man and the woman beside us, we look at them and we go, my life is worth giving up for you. Why do we think like that? It's because we've learned that there's something bigger than ourselves, and there's other people more important than ourselves. And that thought process is a double-edged sword. It's a double-edged sword. It is required in society, but it can also be abused by other people who don't understand it. And so that is that the story you wanted me to share? That's the one?
That's the one.
And I'm astounded to this day with not just that event. I'm astounded. I get to sit and listen to warriors. I'm very blessed and very privileged. And a lot of it has to do with Josh has given me the opportunity, and the UDT SEAL Museum has given me the opportunity to be involved with them. I've had the opportunity to be around men like Oz, and I'm constantly amazed to this day that mindset is actually strong and alive in our emergency services. I think Oz wants to say something.
No, I was going to say, you're 100% right, and it kind of goes back to what you talked about in the very beginning, is why I think why people are so enamored, or whatever the word is, about our war fighters. And because a lot of people don't think they have that in them. And whether they do or not, a lot of that comes down to training and, again, deciding on what you want to do and what's important, is that sense of selflessness. Whether you're in law enforcement, whether you're a military firefighter, a medic doing it as a first responder, a doctor. I mean, you do those jobs because there is something inside of you that is selfless and you want to help other people. And I think everybody has that in them. They just got to look for it. And if you really want to know what it's like and the joy and the pleasure of serving others, just do it. Step up and just do it.
There's a lot of misconception with the public with soldiers who come back, and soldiers do come back, and now and then we have troubles, we have challenges. Some of those challenges are purely physical, some of them are not purely physical. And the truth is you cannot go and wage extreme violence on the other human beings without being affected. Don't get me wrong, I still sleep good at night, and I know Oz does too. Okay? And that's a whole other conversation. You can choose to be a selfless person, or you can choose to be a selfish PRICK. And I've chosen to be both in my life. There are times I've been selfless, and there's times I've been a selfish PRICK. And for the viewers out there, if you're a war fighter, you are of the same community as us, someone said to me, goes, it's not what you did yesterday, it's what you're doing right now. So it really doesn't matter that, honestly, it doesn't. I mean, it matters, but does it matter right now? If Oz has been on a friggin' rooftop smashing bad guys in the defense of his countrymen, yeah, that's important. It does matter. But does that matter right this moment? What matters is and the same as me, what I've done in my career, and the same as Josh, same as every warrior on the planet. Doesn't matter right this moment what we did in the past. What matters is what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
So we can choose right now to be selfless with our families. I fail at it all the time. Everyone will fail it, but we can get up every day, and even if we fail, then we can choose again. Well, I failed. I was a PRICK to my wife last night. Well, you know what? Today I'm choosing not to. Today I'm choosing to help my family prepare for the new normal. Today I'm going to get up and I'm going to work out because I'm in my 50s, and if I don't work out, I'm going to have a heart attack when I'm 60. I'm going to leave my family alone in this changing world. So spending time with men and women over the last 30 years that have had the attitude that somebody else is more important than themselves, and them making those decisions to act on that moment by moment is the greatest impact I've ever had in my entire 30 some years of doing what I'm doing.
Listen, man, it was on that, on the selfishness, the sacrifice, these men and the identification of that. You know, if the character that was found in the New Testament in the Bible with the most faith was a soldier. And Jesus, when there's, I mean, I don't know how accurate I'm going to get, but you know, when I came to the Lord, it was, I made a decision to, in my head, I got to get away from these guys because they're the reason I'm on my hands and knees right now anyways. So I got to get away from them. So I'm like, Lord, I'm running from them. So I'll pack my bags and I'm out of here. He's like, yeah, no, you're going to actually not run. You're going to go deeper into the community. But as I opened the word up in the scripture and the Lord revealed to me the soldier, there's a story in the New Testament, and it was where a soldier required Jesus to come and lay hands on a servant child that was sick and dying. And the Lord he sent a servant to give this word to Jesus when he was moving around and healing. So when Jesus was moving to him, he sent a servant, if I get it correctly, and he said, listen, I'm a man of authority. I'm a soldier. You say it be so, and just say it. I believe and have faith that you just have to say it, and it's done. And Jesus said, I have not found anyone with this much faith in all of Israel. So to understand, Kevin mentioned spiritual a couple times, and that's a whole other Sunday service, which I'm game for. But when these men, we were at the UDT Navy SEAL Museum. We call him Chap, and Chap is a chaplain of. He comes and does the ceremony on the beach. Yoda, I'm talking about. Oz,
yeah.
I'm talking about. And he's SEAL Team 6's chaplain, former retired, I believe. And he told me he laid hands on a dog one time, and that was injured. And the dog was rescued and ended up living on the battlefield. And when you listen to these gentlemen's stories about the selflessness and the sacrifice and the characters of those men and women around them, and the stories that they're sharing, when you see a society with great fear, the mom, my mom being a very strong woman and a huge influence on strength, and the kids out there and trying to grab onto truth, parents afraid to go and get groceries, and the kids seeing that, they come home and they're like, what's everybody so afraid of? Because when you're young, you're looking at fear and you're like, what are they don't want to go outside, they don't want to go to the grocery store, we could die. And I think that the call is for men and women, not just in the soldiering or the emergency service community, but more importantly, the family community, the civilian sector and the civilian side of the house to, in my opinion, draw strength from the Lord, but also draw strength and references to men and women like Oz. And I'm repeating myself again and again through these testimonies and these stories to go, you know what? We aren't going to bring this back to our families, this fear of being out into the public and then coming back. And if you listen to these guys, the question would be to them, and we don't have to ask it now, when you came home, were you trembling? When you came back, did your families or your wives or your kids see you? And everybody's testimony is different and everybody handles stress differently. So, but for me, it's very interesting because that is where a major impact happens to not only the family structure, but the society, to see these men of great strength overcome these great testimonies and continue on to make a stance of faith and strength. Does that make sense? Am I making sense?
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense, man. I have to jump in on this because I want to preface for our audience an important piece, because as we touch on the faith piece, I think it's super important. for me to chime in on my perspective, because I came to the farm. I grew up kind of Roman Catholic, kind of like I didn't really have a strong connection to my church. I always felt like I had a spiritual connection in terms of faith, but it was never put into a perspective for me to understand it in real life. So when I read the Bible, I could not relate. And for somebody who's got a bit of a squirrel brain, who has a hard time focusing on things, I struggle with that, man. I really did. And, it wasn't until I came to the farm and had met these gentlemen and had them put faith piece into perspective, because what you just heard them talk about in terms of putting yourself before others, really what you're talking about is direct Bible scripture, but in real life application and in a warfighter's application. And to me, somebody who has a hard time focusing, I only focus and apply myself to things I'm interested in. And I'm a huge fan of the topic, understanding what our veterans have done, speaking about both my grandparents were in World War II, understanding that my dad didn't serve, nor did I, but I have a connection to the community and a passion to want to share their stories. And an important piece for me is seeing how the faith piece applies to the common day soldier or warfighter is no different than the Bible, and they put it into a perspective that I could digest it. And I really hope that the Sunday service piece for us here is something that we can allow people that maybe aren't of faith to maybe reconnect with what was a foundation they may have had that they lost, and especially our youth. And that's what we need to change. And I really thank you guys for touching on this, because a lot of people, it's not cool or it's not sexy to talk about Jesus, it's not sexy to talk about faith. It's not the trendy thing. But you know what? That's the problem with what we're going on. What's trending now is going to change people's perspectives when real life application happen. COVID-19, I think, was a perfect example of that. People are searching for answers and they can't find them. And I'm hoping that this is an opportunity to do that again with the forum, with you gentlemen contributing. And I really wanted to thank you guys for that whole angle and really allowing me to kind of revisit my faith in an application that, to be quite honest, I understand. Because going to church, I didn't understand that.
Can I chime in on that?
Are we passing around a collection plate?
Yeah. Can I chime in on that one, Corey?
Yes, please do.
Okay, because for the viewers, the spirit of this podcast isn't necessarily to plug Jesus Christ and Christianity and the Bible and all that. It's not the spirit of it. Just so you know, but we are men who have our experience in life, and so we're just speaking from our experience. So, but here's the kicker: if you think about it like this way, there's a lot of things in life I cannot speak for. I can't, but I can speak for, or I can speak of, the experience of spilling blood, killing on the battlefield. But you go on target and you're killing people. And then at times, those around you are being killed by those who you're trying to kill. Your perspective on eternity gets affected. And what I've observed, and I'm not an expert in it in any way, but what I've observed is it's very defined. I have noticed that most warriors, regardless if they have they go to church or have been involved with organized religion, which most aren't actually, they either know that the human existence goes beyond the physical death. They know it in their essence, which we all know. The physical body dies, but the human essence continues. Or they're not sure of it, but they're sure of the people around them, and they're still functional in their selflessness because of the people around them. They still sacrifice. They do as best as they can the right thing. We all make mistakes. We made mistakes on the battlefield. We make mistakes in life. We make mistakes in business. But the reality of is when you're in the business of dealing death, which is really our business, if you boil it down to the bottom core of what we do, and it's not popular to say this, but we deal death. The soldier's job is to close with and destroy the enemy by day or by night, regardless of weather, season, or terrain, and with a word that's not popular, extreme prejudice. That's the actual definition of an infantier, the role of the infantry. And when you live like that, there are realities of eternity that kind of come to your face, especially the old warriors. You watch those old gals and those old guys that have been in it for a long, long time. I'm not talking about the younger operators that have been pumping out hard on many, many operations over the last 10 years or even 15 years. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about those older guys and gals that have been doing this for a long time. They know there's something way more after we die. They may not know what it is. Some of them might believe they know what it is, but they all know there's something more. And that selfishness to allow someone else to stay here in this world, and then that warrior to give themselves, him or her, up, knowing or not knowing what's next, is an amazing thing. That's a level of character that it blows my mind when we're in a world today that people don't want to share toilet paper, a roll of toilet paper. So I think our society, I go, it's easy for old dogs like us to get negative about the young people in society, like this generation. But I believe people can make choices and rebuild new foundations and move forward differently than they ever did before. And I think learning to put other people ahead of ourselves and learning to realize, hey, there's more to life than just this physical existence that we have. You know what? There's a quote in a movie, and I'm going to shut up after this until I'm invited. But it says, "What we do in life echoes in eternity."
Well, you know, on that, Yoda, that goes back to just what you said. I mean, and what Josh had said. Your thing that you end every tweet with or every statement with: deeds, not words. It boils it down to deeds, not words. Think about what your legacy or anybody's legacy is their deeds, not their words. Words are words, but how you acted and how you act on a day-to-day basis in your interaction, again, it comes down to a choice. How do we decide? And I put this as a challenge to anybody that wants to watch this or anybody that shares this, is remember that each day and live your life by deeds, not words. And something that you wish that your kids would be proud of. And if you don't have kids, other kids. Because they're the ones that are going to live by those deeds. Because they see how you live your life.
Well, you guys, and that's amazing. My dad, so anybody here been in the Boy Scouts? Oz, were you a Boy Scout?
I was.
Okay, so you know where I'm going with this.
Yep.
So Lord Baden-Powell, who was an extremely experienced military reconnaissance soldier down in South Africa during the day, and then came back and created the Boy Scouts, blah, blah, blah. One of the main mantras of the Boy Scouts is one good deed a day. One good deed a day. And what could that be? That could be as simple as you hold a door open for someone older than yourself. Or you know what? Maybe you hold the door open for someone younger than yourself. It doesn't matter what you do. And I remember my dad, I got this from my dad. My dad created, we live way in the backwoods, central Nova Scotia. Like on a dirt road that there's barely 50 people in the entire community. There ain't no McDonald's, no stores, no street lights, none of this stuff. Nearest law enforcement at that time was almost an hour away. My dad my dad created the very first Boy Scout troop in that region simply for me, for his son. My dad goes, he did a good deed to help his son. And then in the course of that, he helped other sons, other men's sons. And out of everything I got out of Boy Scouts was that mantra, one good deed a day. And I failed at it most of my life. I truly have. I failed at it most of my life. But the times I've remembered it from my father and from the Boy Scout movement, if you do that once in your life, twice in your life, 3 times in your life, you just do a good deed, well, that behavior compounds. And over time, it affects your subconscious. So now your subconscious is looking at trying to do what's good, as opposed to your conscious mind having to just look out how I'm going to protect myself, my reputation, and all this kind of stuff. How about just doing something good once a day? And I've watched men and women literally take their jackets off in the middle of a Canadian snowstorm and put it on a drunk passed out on the street whose pants were down, and people were literally hundreds of people walking past him on the streets of Halifax. And Haligonians are great people. Nova Scotians are great people. Because no one in their back of their mind thought, well, why don't I just do something good and help somebody? And I think our young people today can still do this. And I think there's lots of young people today that have good hearts, as good as a human being can have with the infection of sin in the human race. And I think the millennials, as we like to smash them and make fun of them, we do. We like to make fun of the millennials. People make fun of us, we make fun of you. But I think our young people today, and I think people today, can wake up every day and make a choice. I'm gonna look fear in the face. I'm gonna prepare for chaos. I'm gonna do something good every day, no matter how small it is. And this all rolls back again to just simply being around guys like you gentlemen, and other people that have also been smashed by other trainers and other men and women who are of greater character than us, for sure, 100%. And they've looked at us and they've invested some time into us. And we as old dogs have that same opportunity. Every day we can wake up and go, I'm going to look fear in the face. I'm going to prepare for chaos. 2, I can do one good thing every day.
I think a good point that you make there, Kev, is that it's kind of going back to service, where you're talking about now service to your brethren, your neighbors, your community, right? And you guys, this being Sunday service, kind of a play on words for both kind of faith, also for our service members, also for serving our community, even if you don't fall in any of those categories. And I think an important piece to kind of go back on, because I know we're covering a lot of stuff over this period of time here, but we talk about, let's sum it up. So being service, faith, and putting yourself before anybody, or putting others before yourself. So Oz, I want to ask you this question, because I know you have faith, and I understand that you were under some incredible odds with the battle in Benghazi. How much of that was relying on your brother next to you? How much of that came down to you knowing that he's going to run into the dust and into the storm, like you mentioned about Tig, that gave you a different type of faith? Maybe not just your faith in God, because I know for you that's strong, but for maybe some of the other brothers that maybe, I don't know, maybe some of them didn't have a strong faith in the Lord, but they had a faith in you. Can you speak a little bit to that piece?
Well, I think a lot of that is, it's what's built up in everybody. And I guess in a sense like this is true character is what you do when no one else is looking. When no one else is looking, because it's easy to do the right thing when you're under scrutiny by others. If you're in a team, that's why teamwork is, and I encourage people. I call it my fire team of faith. I've got those that are around me that are going to call me when I'm, they're going to call me on my crap. They're going to call me on my shit and put me back into, true north, basically. True character is what you do when you're by yourself. When no one's looking, are you going to take that $10 bill that's sitting out there? Or are you going to pick it up and see the guy, the guy that's walking down the street that drops it? He doesn't look back. Are you going to pick it up and take it? Or are you going to call up and do that, And that's really what I think, my faith, my relationship with the Lord, and surrounding myself by those people like Yoda, like you, like Josh, that are not afraid to, hey, Oz, you're getting a little bit outside the left lateral limit or the right lateral limit. I mean, because we're all going to screw up. None of us are perfect. I mean, I screw up every day. And, but as Yoda said, every day I wake up and I plan on doing better each day, no matter what I do. One of my rules is train, train, and train. And then when you're done and you think you've trained enough, continue training, because you haven't.
Yeah, that's pretty powerful stuff there. And talking about the character piece about, doing things when no one's looking, I think that's a key thing. And also going back to what Kev said about, us getting down on the younger people and joking around about the millennials and stuff. And I think, maybe some of us even, and I know for a fact that some of the people, the youth coming up today, don't have the same foundations like we were talking about earlier, because there has been a war on the family unit. I mean, the divorce rate's really high. There's a lot of single parents raising kids right now, a lot of kids that don't have fathers in their lives and have really strong mothers that have to step up. But what we see in a lot of times, even if families are together, we have a mother that's working, a father that's working, and we have children that are being raised by the internet. And I really hope that what we can do as part of this conversation is maybe be a positive part of that internet, that there's an ear listening to role models that are outside of the Kim Kardashians and some of the negative stuff that we see. And I'll be honest, I flip through my Instagram feed as my son or my daughters are sitting beside me, and some of the stuff that pops up, man, I'm like, whoa, just understand what our kids are seeing and being programmed with. We need more positive content, and I'm hoping that maybe this and what we're doing can inspire others to maybe do some of these same forums and maybe change what the content of the internet is, if that is in fact what's raising our kids, because we need to change. We can complain all we want about the youth. We need to change that. And I'm hoping, and I mean, for me, my heroes, and I know you guys don't like to hear this, but my heroes were people like yourselves, which is why I wanted to do what I'm doing now. It wasn't people that were in sports and that, I think the important piece here is we need our youth to have better role models. They need better access to information. We talk about preparedness, and I hope something positive from the COVID-19 incident that comes from this is an awakening of what the human spirit needs, what our community needs. And everybody can step up and go beyond what they've done in the past. And the message you guys are giving about waking up and doing one good deed, man, I'm gonna take that away from this in my own personal life. Thinking, what can I do? Because it's a very simple way, and it's framed in a way that people can understand. I think the problem with a lot of things these days is people don't understand how does it apply to their life. And I think you guys are a great conduit to that example there. So I thank you guys for that.
And I just want to say something really quick of the Boy Scout thing. I tried to get in the Boy Scouts, and I didn't know they're doing criminal background checks. And it was a bummer because all the kids around me ended up, doing the cookie thing and all that stuff. And
hold on. Cookie thing, that's the Girl Scout thing. So maybe you were applying to the wrong one.
Thank you, Oz. Thank you for clearing clarifying that, Oz.
So, guys, listen, I want to thank you all for your time. This has been everyone's Sunday service. Hope this will be the first of many. And your time is more valuable to us than you know. And thank you guys for sharing your stories and your testimonies with us here. Thank you, Josh, my co-host from Batten K9, doing some incredible things in the shadows as well. And I just want to end quickly by saying you got to support these gentlemen here. They've served their country and they continue to serve. And I know, Oz, you've got your foundation. I'm going to give you the opportunity to please plug that quickly, and how can people support you?
After Benghazi, I was still in the hospital and decided that I wanted to, again, continue serving the guys that are serving overseas. And as private security contractors, there's not a lot of support for the families. There's, moderate support for the contractor, but there's almost zero support for the families. So me and my wife decided that we'd start a nonprofit called Shadow Warriors Project. And our website is shadowwarriorsproject.org. And what we do is we help the private security contractor and the families should the guy or gal get injured or killed overseas. And then what we've done also is partner with Batten K9, and we're starting a dog program as well. And that's both for private security contractors as well as veterans. And, all the help that anybody out there could give. I mean, it's amazing what, 100 to 500 people, if they do a reoccurring donation of $10 or $20 every month, it's amazing the difference that can make in helping people out. It's really amazing. I mean, 1,000 people at $10 a month, that's $120,000 a year. That there, we can get 5 or 6 dogs to people. We can make sure that a family doesn't get kicked out of their home, that kids get to go to college. Those are the things that matter. At least that's what really matters to me now, is that's that continued service. Thanks a lot for allowing that plug, Corey.
Yeah,
hey, Mark, you have you got a Wednesday night read too at 8 p.m. It's Wednesdays at 8. You're reading through your book as well. Plug that up.
8 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time right now, and we're going to probably try to do it Friday as well, so we can get 2 chapters out. So we can do Wednesday and Friday. We're doing a live reading of the book. Join me in doing that, and I'll send this to everybody as well. The first 1,000 people that do a $20 reoccurring donation to shadowwarriorsproject.org will get a free autographed book by me.
Wow, man. Hey, I got the opportunity to sit in on one of your reads. An outstanding job. For the audience out there that hadn't been participating in that yet, definitely go and do that, because you get to hear it firsthand from Oz, and as he's reading the story, but he also breaks away and allows for some Q&A. So to have that opportunity and exclusive connection to Oz and ask your questions, man, like, wow, where else can you get that but through his network? So I thank you for that, Oz. And Kevin, I'm going to throw it to you as well, because you're doing some amazing things in the area of treatment with cannabis with our veterans. Can you fill us in quickly on that and how people can kind of get involved with that as well?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the moment to share that. So, first of all, I'm not really doing anything amazing. I'm just associated with some of the top players in Canada in the medical cannabis industry, and they leverage my Tier 1 Special Forces pedigree effectively, and I just basically show up and I try to do my best to help break the stigma for the use of cannabis as an alternate medicine to pharmaceuticals. And I'm not smashing the pharmaceutical companies at all. They've done lots of great work in their own time. But I'm associated with probably the 2 most powerful and effective companies in Canada. And one of them is called CannaConnect. And what they do is they specialize in connecting veterans with doctors and the medicine. And it's a very simple process. And it's a process I never understood till about 5 years ago when I was asked to be involved. And I've watched that process, when applied with responsibility, really change veterans' lives for the better. So we're doing that here in Canada, and we're also involved in the United States too. So for the U.S. viewers, myself and Canada Connect are involved with the leading lobby group on Washington Hill, in the movement forward of federal legalization for medical cannabis. I can't speak too much on the recreational side. It's not really my thing right now. But yeah, so just I don't need a plug. Don't need a plug for donations or anything like that. That's not the way this works. Charity is different. You need donations for charities. You have to. So if you guys can help out with Oz and what they're doing, please do. Yeah, for us, it's just be aware, learn about the medicine, and just understand that a lot of those wounds that veterans, police, firefighters, EMS, and you know what, even school teachers and others that are supporting our societies, a lot of those wounds aren't seen. They're not physical. Yep. So just remember that. You don't need to coddle a veteran. That's the last thing a veteran needs, to be coddled. But a little bit of understanding that their wounds are many times unseen, and there's some very natural plants that the Lord's put on this earth to help us with some of those issues. That's my lane. I'll just ask you to be aware and be gentle a little bit when you run into these folks.
That's a great plug there, and from an educational standpoint, so I thank you for that and what you're doing there. Both gentlemen still serving when their service, with our countries, are no longer needed, but needed in a different way. So thank you guys for that. This has been your Sunday service. I would also like to shout out the Farm Podcast with Josh and I. We also had Oz on a podcast, and Kev will be on a podcast as well. So we'll be able to dig deeper into these gentlemen's stories and their testimonies on that. But Sunday service is going to be a way for us to be able to continue on and be able to share the stories and the testimonies of our veterans. So thank you, gentlemen. As always, great pleasure and honor to have you on. And I can't wait till the next time.
Hey, thanks a lot for having us. We love you guys.
Yeah, love you boys. I'll talk to you after.
This has been your Sunday service.